Welcome, everyone, to the Success Elevated podcast. As always, I'm your host, Hayden Lee, and I am joined this week by my co-host, founding partner here at Spot On Solutions, Katie Harris. Katie, thanks for joining me this week.
You bet, Hayden. I've been looking forward to this.
It's going to be an awesome podcast. He jokingly said he was the last person at Violand to get a podcast interview, and now we're just going to bombard him with podcast interviews. But we are joined this week by Jeff Jones, who's the Director of Marketing and Sales over at Violand Management Associates. Jeff, thanks for joining us this week.
Well, thank you, Hayden. Thank you, Katie, for finally letting me come on board and be part of this.
I mean, you had to agree to follow certain rules, Jeff, and until you would agree to the rules, there was no invite on the table. So now that you're on board with the rules of the podcast, we're good.
I had to learn a whole bunch of words that are not swear words, so I've done my best. I've done my homework, and I'm ready to go.
In all fairness, Hayden, I don't know if you know this or not, but I promised Jeff that our bleeper would be warmed up and ready to go in case he said anything inappropriate on this podcast. So if there's a bunch of bleeps, everybody, we've been taking some time to get that bleeper ready. So.
That's on me. Yeah, I'll take that one.
Go for it. Go for it. No, in all fairness, like honestly, Jeff, you've been in this industry a long time, and I get to see you, several times a year at a lot of different events, at the Violand events, of course, but we attend a lot of the same things, and you are, I think, one of the most respected people that I come across. People are always mentioning, information you're giving them. One of the things that I've loved about watching you work over the last few years is how quick you are to just point people in the right direction of resources and want to see them succeed. And so I think you have a lot that we're going to pick your brain about today on how businesses can really set themselves up for success in the home service industry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And thank you. That was very kind of you to say that. I'm a believer. I think all of us on this podcast and most people listening to this podcast would say the same thing, that rising tide raises all ships. And this is a big industry, and there's a lot of money that you can make in this industry, but it's also a really small industry, and it's very unique in that we're all going through similar struggles. And when you can find a group of people and you can see that they're facing some of the same challenges, and hey, if we sit down and we just talk this through, we can have an awful lot of fun together, and we can figure this out, and we can make a couple bucks, and most importantly, we can help a lot of people. And I think that really makes it a unique and a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you talk, we've been talking a lot on our end. We're coming right up on fourth quarter, which seems crazy for me. And we start, we always start at Spot On Solutions. We sit down, do some quarterly planning, look at our initiatives for the year. But once you hit fourth quarter, you're looking at it a little bit different. And we start talking about how successful are we as a business. And I'm just curious, like you guys coach a lot of businesses. What do you think are some of the main keys to success? That's a big loaded question. But if you just look at businesses as a whole, what are some of the things that stand out to you that successful businesses are doing?
Yeah, I think this is the first time. So I've been at this now here for Violand for, 12, 13 years. Our company's been around for 37. Almost all those years, companies are up. They're growing. They're doing really, really well. This is one of those rare years where a lot of great companies in the industry are down. And you've got to be a little bit more creative. You've got to be a little bit smarter in how you run the business. And the bottom line, most companies do a great job paying attention to the top line. And are we selling, and are we keeping our team busy, and are we busy? And we find our worth in how busy we feel, not how productive, but how busy. And I think years like this have really pushed back on that, of saying, okay, busy doesn't matter. Productive matters, smart matters, efficient matters, and understanding your numbers matter. But there's so many times where you want to get your hands dirty out on the project and make certain we've got enough projects, and that's what takes up your time. And along the way, you end up fighting with adjusters and vendors and employees and homeowners and property managers, and that takes you up mentally too. I think the best companies that we work with, they understand their mission. They understand the why behind what they do. And of course, it's to get the dollar. Absolutely. Profit is a great word. But beyond that, what truly matters to them, and what matters to them can be different than what matters to the company down the street. And they can both be 100% correct. but they have something that resonates inside of them that says, I want to go above and beyond. And they get a team that will buy into that, and they hold each other accountable to it. And with that, you start making smarter decisions along the way. You start making decisions that aren't necessarily emotional, but they're ones that can be backed up on experience and data and understanding and compassion, and build the business off that direction.
I love that. I think that not all days are going to be good days, right? In any
No.
business. And right, Hayden, not all days are going to be good days.
Not all days are good days. It's 100% true.
But having that, that vision behind you, that why behind you, that carries the day when things are hard. I think it's interesting you say, like, having the data, right? Having the information so that you don't make emotional driven decisions, when really our why generally is pretty emotional.
It is.
Yeah.
The why is motivational, and there should be a difference between that logical and that motivational piece. The why is what allows us to continue to work in a very challenging industry. That pipe never breaks at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's going to break at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the most inopportune times, and sometimes with customers and insurance companies and stuff that you don't necessarily want to be a part of. But why do we do this? And why do you keep going forward? And if you are able to use the why as the motivation on how to continue to move the needle and make a difference, but you're able to use the logical part that comes from the data and the KPIs and the numbers and the analytics, that's going to allow you to do it more effectively so that you can help more people and you can drive closer to why your why is there.
Yeah. I love the knowing your numbers piece and the logic conversation. You said something that when you said it, I was like, gosh, I hear this pretty often too from our clients, which is we don't feel busy, right? Like it doesn't feel like we've got a lot of work coming in, right? And from a marketing perspective, like we'll oftentimes sit down with clients and we'll be like, man, look at all these leads that came in. And we'll hear, well, it doesn't feel like we're very busy. It doesn't feel like we got a lot of work coming in. And that's why it's so important that you actually know your numbers. Because, okay, hey, on our end, it looks like you got a bunch of leads, but your end, you're saying your team doesn't feel very busy. Are these leads not getting closed? Why aren't they getting closed? Like, what's going on here? How can we maybe, close this loop a little bit? It's a funny conversation that you say, because it seems so much of like, oh, is your business successful? If you don't know your numbers, it's like, well, yeah, we're busy. Which does that mean you're successful? Like it's funny
if you
how
don't know your numbers, that answer changes day to day.
Right. Well, we felt busy yesterday, but today, my guys it doesn't really feel like they're very busy. I'm not getting lots of calls. It's like, well, do you actually know what's going on? Have you looked at the numbers? Are you being efficient? Are you being profitable? Like, yeah, your guys might not be busy today, but maybe it was a super efficient day or whatever, right? Like there's so many different ways to look at it, and basing it upon like how you feel your business is doing is not a good way to know if you're doing good.
Yeah, it's one of the issues that comes with that is even the people that oftentimes know their numbers, and they do know their numbers, and they know historically, okay, we were here this year, and we were here the year before, and we were here the year before prior, and they're able to make some decisions off of how those numbers are trending. The issue, though, is that they don't know what the numbers should be. And as an industry, we kind of hold that close to the vest of what those actual benchmarks should be. And they're different depending on, and one of the reasons that people hold them to the vest is because there are variables that go into that: the size of your company and the type of work and your product mix that takes place. Are you in New York City, or are you in the middle of the Midwest in a rural town? And if you're Canton, Ohio. So all of that has to come into play when you take a look at it. But we talk about numbers, people have to understand that that's a lagging indicator. That's at the end. That is the final score of the game. And it's exceptionally important because it tells you if you won or lost, but it doesn't tell you how you won or lost. And that's what the numbers really are designed for, is giving you questions. Okay, why is that number there? What decisions did we make that caused a positive trend, a positive number? What behaviors led to that? And how do we replicate the positives? And the ones that are trending in the negative, are they trending negative solely for us, or are they trending negative for everybody in the area or everybody in this region of the country or the industry as a whole? And if we're opposite of that, why? And what decisions and actions are causing that? What changes are available to us that we're willing and able to do So the numbers will take care of themselves. Otherwise, you change the numbers, you're cooking the books. So how you use those numbers based off of knowledge of what they should be and where they historically have been in order to influence behavior, but to make management, not leadership, but management decisions off of, goes a long way in running a successful business and giving you the data and the analytics so that you can go after that emotional why more profitably and reach a greater amount of people.
Awesome. When you, so for our people that are listening, right? If they're listening to this, they're like, yeah, like I agree. Jeff is smart. Like we know Jeff is smart. We know
I like that.
But then it's like, where do I start? What do I look at? What number, like, where's a starting point for somebody, or where's the place to put your attention that maybe moves the needle?
Yeah, first, if you haven't taken any kind of accounting courses, if you don't understand GAAP and all of that, make certain that you do. A lot of people just turn that stuff over to a bookkeeper or sometimes to a CPA and say, here, you do it. And it isn't necessarily that they don't know how to do it or they're purposely going to mess it up. It's that they don't understand the industry standards that go with it. So you can go to organizations like the RIA, which will be able to put you in contact with people that can do that. You can get a hold of a mentor. You can get a hold of a consultant, somebody like us who would go in and sit down with you and show you, hey, here's how your chart of accounts needs to be set up. And here's where the ratios are. And here's where the benchmarks are. And here's how you're doing. And then let's go into discussions of what each number truly represents. And it doesn't mean that everybody's got the exact same setup because you don't have the same product mix and everything, but you got to be able to extrapolate the data off of that. And the other piece of the data has got to be timely. The data has got to be accurate. Yeah. And if you're not getting the stuff inputted in time and done correctly, most people are going to run it out of cash. You can't make business decisions when you're running cash and QuickBooks. It should be an accrual, but they don't understand how to do that. So that's where the education piece needs to come into so that you can run it just a little bit better.
Cool. It's good advice. That's good advice. I know that, when we started our business 14 years ago, I didn't walk in as a business owner with any background in accounting or reading a P&L or forecasting. Like it's a skill that, as entrepreneurs, we're going to step in and have to learn it. And it can feel a little bit intimidating, I think. So I think those are some great suggestions there.
Well, yeah, very few times do I come across somebody in the industry who has an accounting background or has a degree in accounting. They almost always come out of the operations side. Occasionally they'll come from the sales side. The only real time I ever get anybody who comes from the accounting side is maybe they got a background as a CPA or a banker, and what they're doing is buying distressed businesses and trying to flip it. That's not a long term within the industry. That's somebody who's going to just turn around a business and try and make a buck, which is fine. But very few business owners have that, and they're going to rely on somebody else to give them that information. But oftentimes they're relying on somebody who doesn't know the industry well enough to be able to give them the type of information they truly need to make the right decisions.
Well, and as a business owner, there's very few things more empowering, I think, than understanding your numbers. When you're like, hey, I am clear on what this looks like and why that's there, you sleep a lot better at night with that for sure.
You do. You have to understand how the decisions and actions that you are doing within the organization, because they are a representation of you. It's no different than your personal checkbook. And if at the end of the month you got $2,000 sitting in your checking account, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I know that $2,000 in your checking account is because you didn't spend it. And you could have spent more, or maybe you overspent and there really should be $6,000 left. It is the result of the decisions and actions. And so with that, that's where you really want to sit down and spend time on those. And the numbers will always take care of themselves.
Yeah. It seems like a key piece of this, and I know you guys at Violand are obviously big believers in it, and we are too. Obviously you've got to know your numbers and you've got to be looking at them all the time and aware of them and what's going on and analyzing them with different team members and going over them. But I think another key piece of this is having some dedicated time to do some kind of planning meetings, right? We've talked a little bit about knowing your numbers, but one thing that we're big believers here at SOS is like having dedicated set apart time to like talk about goals and strategic planning. And I feel like the numbers help those meetings and those conversations perform even better. And it helps those meetings be even that much more effective. Katie, I know, kind of going back to when you started Spot On Solutions, Like you haven't always done quarterly planning or annual planning, right? Like this is something that you've developed over the last few years, and you've done it longer than a few years, but you didn't start out doing it. What was kind of the initial thought process behind, okay, we've got to, like Jeff's saying, we got to know our numbers, but we've also got to sit down and have some dedicated time to plan this out. Like, what was kind of the initial push to start doing some of that?
I didn't know anything when I started Spot On Solutions. Just I know anything other than I really liked helping businesses and I liked marketing and, but as far when it comes to, I knew marketing, I knew people, but I did not know business. And so you just jump in and you start running it. You try to figure it out and you fall and you figure it out. But, I mean, it's probably, we were a solid 7 years ago that we really put in some structured planning for things. Right. And, honestly, when you fix things is usually when they're so broken they hurt too much. That's, that it was like, why did we start doing some quarterly planning and why did we have those structured meetings is because it hurt too much to try to solve problems without them. And anytime something hurts enough, you'll figure out a good solution for it. And once we figured out, hey, you know what, if we can set aside 48 hours once a quarter and we can bring our team in and we can look at what we're doing right and we can look at what our goals are and we can look at our numbers, like things just don't hurt as much or as often. And we started taking things in 90-day sprints. We still do. We've been doing this for a long time. Take things in 90-day sprints and it's amazing how fast you can move the ball when you got a really good plan and a really good team.
The Success Elevated podcast is brought to you by SOS Navigator. SOS Navigator is an on-demand training platform geared towards marketing, personal development, and business growth. We understand that as a business owner in the service industry, you wear a million hats. Let SOS Navigator be a simple and cost-effective way for you to continue to grow your business. Click the link in the show notes below and use code SOS Podcast to get 10% off your next on-demand training course.
One of the things that I find so fascinating about these quarterly meetings and just planning meetings in general, it seems like it would be some of the things that we talk about seem kind of like no-brainers, right? When you're in the mode of like planning and setting goals and talking strategy as a group. But if you don't dedicate the time to sit down and have those conversations, you can miss them, right? Like it's nothing that we talk about in those meetings is necessarily hugely like groundbreaking. Oh, we're redesigning the wheel here. We're going to reshape everything. It's really just like dedicating that time to be like, hey, this is something that it's going on. We should really put a bigger emphasis on it or whatever. Like just dedicating that time makes all the difference. Right. And if you feel like you're too busy to do it, kind of going back to that conversation, it feels too busy to sit down and have those conversations. It can really impact the overall growth of your business. You might be making more top line revenue than you did last year, but maybe you're not as efficient, or maybe you're not as productive, or maybe your team's gotten bigger or whatever it is. Setting apart like a chunk of time every 90 days or, a couple times a year, whatever is good for your team, helps you really start to figure out how you can actually grow your business. And again, we're not necessarily coming up with some groundbreaking thing every 90 days, but there are things that we would miss if we otherwise didn't do it, and that's what's been so, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you don't have a business plan in place, or maybe you wrote one when you started the business, ideally to try and raise capital to put it together, and then it went into a drawer and we don't work off of it, but you probably have some idea of what you're trying to accomplish in your head. It's just not communicated out there. You probably have a marketing plan more so than a business plan put somewhere. That's okay. You are part of the 95% of the businesses in this industry who are going to say the exact same thing. And I'm going to tell you why you don't, because when you started this business, you had all intentions of being the smartest person in the room the entire time and building a great team and building a real business. And you weren't able to forecast all of the challenges that come with it, because who can? And then the goal was to keep the lights on. And when you start the business, the goal is just to keep the lights on and keep the door so your key still works, so that you can learn to fight again or live to fight again for another day. And over time, it starts building up and up and up. And what gets pushed to the back burner is tomorrow's issues, because you're still fighting yesterday's. When you start the business, you're very reactive. There isn't time to be proactive. and it just buries you deeper and deeper and deeper until the business finally consumes you. And so what we would preach is, whether you're on day one of the company or you've been doing this for 30 years, those conversations have to take place. And they will not take place if you schedule half a day in a boardroom in your office, in your company, in your boardroom, because the phone's going to ring. And there's going to be a project manager who needs to be in that meeting who can't. And there's going to be a salesperson that suddenly has an opportunity to leave and go to a client. What's that salesperson want to do? Go talk to the client where they can earn commission, or sit in that room for half a day and talk strategy? They're going to leave. You as the owner are going to get distracted. You're going to get frustrated. You're not going to have the information. We can't dive deep into the conversation. Plus, you have tunnel vision. You have a whole bunch of people who've been doing the same thing the same way for a long period of time. There's no new information entering the conversation. So we're going to push you to leave. You schedule 2 days and you leave. Do not go in the office. And when you sit down as a group, you commit to turning the cell phone off. Now, every maybe hour or 2 hours, you're going to take a break and pull the cell phone out and check that. But you have to take those distractions away. Now, we're going to hope that you would hire somebody, whether it's us or somebody else, to come in and help facilitate what that process looks like, because you need that outside voice to make that happen. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you, it doesn't. But if you want to hold yourself accountable, if you want to make changes within your organization, you want to give your people something to strive for and give them an idea of what it is your expectations are, what they need to accomplish, write it down. Don't keep it in the back of your head, and make them a part of the process. They're not going to buy into you just telling them what to do. They need ownership in their position. You can't give them physical ownership, but you can give them ownership of the responsibility. And that's where this is going to fall into play is, okay, you tell me how this is going to happen. If we can agree together, this is the goal. This is the objective we're trying to reach. Now let's talk through, how do we make that happen? And what are the tracking mechanisms, and what type of budget are we going to assign to this, so that we can continue to make this progress? And I don't mean to go on too far, but I've got a great example of what this actually looks like. In 2019, I brought roughly 75 companies down to Captiva Island, Florida, for three-day business planning sessions. And 75 companies wrote an outstanding business plan and how they were going to grow their team, grow their capital, and grow their business. 2 months later, a global epidemic hit. Not one of those 75 companies wrote global epidemic in their strategic plan. I'm assuming. Maybe I'm assuming.
I didn't see anybody. I think I was at that event. I don't think I saw anybody put that down.
I don't remember that conversation, but it happened. But here's the thing. It didn't destroy anybody's business plan. It actually made it more valuable, because those things didn't become unimportant. They still need to happen, but now we need to be able to maneuver within the world that we lived in together for a year, for 2 years. And those business plans are flexible. They're living, breathing documents. So when you have new information, like a hurricane hits or a global epidemic, hopefully never again, or something else changes, we can make adjustments to that. But without having that plan in place, our companies that we know that didn't have a business plan, that then had to go in and tackle a global epidemic, were buried. They were crushed. They didn't know where to turn. The ones that had the business plan had something they could fall back on to continue those conversations and be able to make adjustments, and went through that whole issue much, much stronger.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of things that you pointed out there that I know made a difference for us, like a facilitator. Sometimes as owners, we need somebody in the room that can just call bull crap when it needs to be called.
Be objective, right, Katie? Be a third party almost. Yeah.
30,000 foot. Yes.
Get some fresh eyes on it. Ask the hard questions. Ask for people to, say more. Be the person speaking up that's not the owner. That's been powerful to have that. So when you guys are facilitating something, talk to us a little bit about what would that look like to have somebody else come in and facilitate a meeting for you.
Yeah, when you facilitate it, you don't lead the conversation. You don't dominate the conversation, because quite frankly, if we were to come in and help facilitate a strategic planning session for SOS, we don't know your business as well as you do. You can tell us the challenges, but we're not going to understand it to the nuances that you do. But what we're going to do is take a look at the discussions that you're having, make certain they're staying on track, because it's very, very easy to get sidetracked by other things. We got to make certain those things stay in track, but there has to be an organization to the process. And there's 2 sets to it. There's technically 4 sets, but there's 2 sets that we would discuss here. You've got a long-term goal. And when I say long-term goal, what most people will tell me is, I want to be $10 million. That's not your long-term goal. Why do you want to be $10 million? What do you think you get at $10 million that you don't get at $6 million? Because you're going to get
bigger
a heck of a lot
problems.
more
That's what
headaches.
you get.
Yeah, you're going to have lots of cash, and that's okay. Tell me what's at $10 million, because that's where we're trying to get to. I don't need something that is completely measurable as a long-term goal. That sounds more like a dream. When we look at the long-term goal, it's what does that feel like? What is it that we're trying to accomplish that we want to consider ourselves successful 5 to 10 years from now? And once we identify truly what that is based off of the why, which goes back to the mission statement, which goes back to the vision statement, now we can start to take a look at that short-term stuff. And that short-term stuff is very much measurable. That's where owners tend to want to live. And that is, okay, if we want to grow this division, well, what does that look like next year? Down to the activity. How many more stops do we have to make at Plumbers? How many more lunch and learns are we going to have to do day by day, week by week, month by month, so that those activities will generate the results that we want in the 4 main core functions of the business, whether it's sales, marketing, accounting, finance, HR, or operations? And what do we have to do to add people? What do we have to do to add equipment? How are these decisions going to affect cash flow as we work throughout the year? So those two pieces need each other. The problem is almost nobody is good at both of them. Good at that 30,000 foot pie in the sky part, or the immediate one. I'd say I struggle on day one of our planning retreat. I'm not very good at it. Chuck Violand is a master at it. That's the world that he lives in. When we get to day 2 and now it's objective and here's what I got to do and what I got to do it by, I love that. I can do that piece, where Chuck is going to struggle with that piece, the detail. Don't tell me how the sausage is made, just make the thing. Yeah. And so you get the facilitator is able to get the people who think this way to communicate with the people who think this way, so that the plan is able to mesh, because these people are always going to draw it here and these people are always going to draw the discussion. Yep. But most of the time you're doing the work on your own. It's your plan. You do it. Our job is to facilitate the conversation.
It's your business. It's your plan. It's your business. It's your dream, right? Go do the work for it. Well, I love it. So we've talked about money. We've talked about vision and purpose. We've talked about planning. I'm going to throw you a little bit of a softball here, because you brought up Captiva, and Violand business planning retreats have been a key part of our Spot On Solutions business since day one. I think I've lost track of how many I've been to, but the system is still the same, and you have a few coming up soon, right? We're getting right to the end of the year. People are going to be looking at 2025, and we've talked about facilitating, right? We've talked about setting aside time. Well, it's one thing to leave the office and go find, a hotel or a different room or something down the street. It's another thing to pack up your team or whatever and fly to Florida or fly to Canton and spend, half of a week in a room making a plan. And I know Violand has done this and done this very, very well for a lot of years. And the system has never changed. And all the times I've gone, it's the same setup. It's the same plan. It's the program, right? It works. And so what is it about? Talk to us a little bit about, like I said, I'm gonna throw you a little bit of a softball here. I want to hear specifically about Violand business planning retreats and how they operate and why they work.
It's a longer term to accomplish it than just the 3 days that you're there, because we have to acclimate you to the process. I can't have you dealing with yesterday's fire, then put you in a row and say, where do you want to be in 10 years? You're going to show me one finger and walk out the door. What we need.
Which finger would that be, Jeff? Which finger?
Exactly. I don't know if the bleed button is going to work for that one. But what we want to do with it is we need you to compile a whole bunch of information prior to getting down there so we can be more efficient and hit the ground running. And you have to have the data to do it. But more importantly, you have to have your entire team involved in the process. And none of us can afford to fly our entire team to Florida or up here to Canton, Ohio. So to get them involved in the process starts early. So there is a series of webinars that you're going to do prior to coming in, to where you're able to sit down with them for half an hour. We're not needing full days from them, but sit down for half an hour. Let's talk through this. Give me your insight, because you're the one with boots on the ground doing this day to day, and tell me what you think and what you feel. And then once we're able to compile all of that information off of the tools that we give you, then we put you into that room. To give you an idea, at the first Florida retreat, which is sold, I've got 2 Florida retreats. First one's sold out. We've got almost 70 companies coming down.
Yeah.
Amazing networking experience. And all of them are going to have their own table. So if you come down there and you've got 3 people with you from your company, a total of 4, we give you a table with 5 chairs, one of them being empty. That's for our job to sit down on when you need us. Otherwise, you're working on the thing. If you come down by yourself, you get a table with 2 chairs. And then we facilitate it from there. We're going to start with assessments. We have to identify where are we strong, where are we weak, simple SWOT analysis. And then we take a look at what is in place from an SOP area based on the size of company that you are and the different types of services that you provide. So it is customized back to you. And now we can identify, okay, here is our biggest weaknesses. Are they weaknesses that we need to address? Or are we okay moving past those? Here's our biggest strengths. Do we need to continue to add to them? We can make those decisions, which are going to make the process a little bit easier. Then we go straight to the mission, because that's what matters. When we go to a vision, then we go to a core value. And our job is to challenge you on that, because when I sit here and I ask you, what are your core values? I already know what your answer is. Your answer is going to be honesty, integrity, and customer service. That's great. I have no idea what that means, because the other 60 some companies in the room wrote the same thing. What does that mean? What does integrity mean to you versus the person over there? And it's not that one is right or wrong or any better than the other. It's what does it mean to you? Because if you want to expect me as your employee to live up to that, to live and breathe that and buy into that and be a part of that culture, lay it out for me. So I could say, yeah, I get that. Boy, that's inspiring. That makes me want to be here. Now I know I'm part of something special that's being built. And we're going to go that direction with it. Then we're going to move into that long-term goal. And at that point, you're going to be pretty overwhelmed. So we're going to shut it down. And then we're going to do an awful lot of networking, because we need you interacting with the other business owners and managers and vendors who are there, so that you can learn what's working for other people. You're going to write a better plan. We bring you back in on day 2, and we look at the major business objectives. In order to achieve that long-term goal, what do we have to accomplish in 2025? What's the 5 to 7 most important things your company needs to accomplish? Those are measurable. Then we break it down into strategies and tasks. Who is going to do what? And those are monthly and quarterly. So you've got the tracking mechanisms, you've got the establishment of what that really looks and feels like. Then we're going to do a 12-month marketing plan with you. And it's going to be customized specific to you. You're working at your table. If you need help from us, you put up a red flag, and our team works their way over and sits down. And our goal is to guide you and challenge you and offer suggestions on what we've seen from other successful companies and say, that ain't going to work, or that's wrong. Let's move this, so that we can write the best plan we can. Then we bring you back on day 3, and day 3 is the frustrating day. It's also the most important day, and that's pro forma. So we're going to take your historical financial information, we're going to put it into a program that we have built unique to us, that will then project out moving forward what the financial results of all of these decisions and actions you just put in your plan are going to look like. So you're going to know ahead of time, if we follow this, where's it going to be successful, and in what months are we going to have negative impact on cash flow? If we're going to hire this person, what is the other things that have to come with it, so that how's that going to affect the financial bottom line? And when are we going to start to see an ROI on what that piece is? And that will give you enough information forward looking, so that we can be rest assured that decisions we want to make are right. Because what's going to happen is you're going to say, I want to do these 7 things. Then you're going to plug it into the financial pro forma, and you're going to realize you can only afford to do 2 of them. Great. What are the 2 most important? And that's how we can really narrow this thing down. And then, of course, we do breakout sessions this year. We're doing, the vendors are actually leading the breakout sessions. Miss Katie Harris will be leading.
With Jeff
one.
Jones by my
Looking at
side.
sales.
That's the plan this year.
I'm going to rely on you as the expert for digital marketing. My job is to sit there and go, yeah, what she said. And I'm happy to do that.
Hey, if you'll stand there and do that, I will be a happy person. That's pretty fun.
I will be your biggest cheerleader.
I did tell Jeff we will have the best breakout this year. So
how can we not?
I love it. I love it.
I'll bring cupcakes to hand out. A little bribery never hurt.
No, that's great advice. I've watched companies do this year after year after year after year, and it's really fun to watch new companies that sit in the room, and it's the first time they've done it, right? Because it's so eye-opening. But you've done it 100 times, it's still just as important, right? And all these times I've gone, I've never realized there is like a specific number of chairs at every table with one extra. So
there absolutely is. And I'll tell you that we have companies that come down that have been doing this, whether you do it with us, you do it with somebody else. Look, it's important to do it. We have companies who've been coming to this retreat for 20 plus years. They do not need to be in a room with us to write a successful business plan. They absolutely know how to do it. They could teach the course if they wanted to. But they are self-aware enough to know that if they don't, it ain't going to happen. And they'll come down, and that plan is mostly written by the time they get down there. Our job is to, dot I's and cross T's, and they want to interact when they want that networking piece, and they want to spend time with the coaches and talk through everything and very strategic conversations. They do it because it works.
Yep. Well, and the beautiful thing about that environment that you guys have created, honestly, is they reach out to everybody around them, right? It's just like you started with, you want everybody to rise. And that's what happens in an environment like that, where you share what you offer honest feedback, you talk it through and then you go home and you implement it, but you implement it now with a whole team of support behind you. That's pretty awesome. So appreciate
and then we show you how to
sharing.
use it when you get back home. That's the other big piece.
Yeah.
You talked about having quarterly meeting. Absolutely. We actually, while you're down there, we force you to go into your Outlook calendar and schedule it. And we will tell you this first. You don't get to move this meeting. This goes out to all the people that need to be there. Now, you as the owner need to do it monthly. You're going to sit down and track progress monthly on how it's going. Quarterly, you're going to sit down with your management team or whoever's involved in the process. And that's the accountability. And you as an owner are going to be assigned tasks. And guess what? You didn't get them all done. And you got to sit in front of your team and say, yep, I didn't get it done. And now we got to decide, is that because you didn't get it done? Was it not important enough? Or is it the wrong objective? And that can be the case. And that's where the flexibility piece comes in. But you have to hold yourself accountable in front of your team. But you also get to hold your team accountable to themselves. And that brings in a big piece that is missing in most of these small businesses that we work with, is that accountability. Hold them accountable to what? What you think they should be doing? Did you tell them? Mm-hmm. Here's a document that shows and outlines step by step. This is what you should be doing along with the other tasks that you're assigned. If it's not done, let's discuss why.
Very cool. Good stuff.
Good. So good. Jeff, you're the best. We appreciate it. This was an awesome conversation.
Saving the best for last. I love that.
Saving the best for last.
You told me to warm up my bleeper button. I didn't even have to use it one time.
You know why? I have a 2-year-old daughter, so I watch pretty much nonstop Disney cartoons at this point. So I believe my ability to swear has dropped significantly, at least during the hours of 6 a.m. till 7:30 p.m. After that picks up again, especially if my Cleveland Browns are on TV, then I'm really good at swearing.
It's funny how not cute those words sound coming out of a 2-year-old, huh, Jeff?
Some up and uses them in context. Yeah, pretty impressive. Yeah.
Solid parenting right there. Solid parenting skills.
There are times where I look at it and go, I want to be mad, but that was solid.
That was pretty funny. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, you've walked us through a little bit about what BPR is and how you guys help people grow their businesses and the planning and everything that goes into that. I know you guys are probably filling up pretty fast, but if people are interested in learning a little bit more, want to maybe reach out about coming to one of these business planning retreats, it's the best way they can reach out to you.
Yeah, you can go on the event site, which is violandplanning.com. You can call our office, 800-360-3513. The events are October 2nd through the 4th, which is right around the corner. So timing wise, if you can't make that, and I don't know when this thing's going to go live, that one's the one that's in Canton, Ohio. I'll tell you, for whatever reason, people prefer to be in Florida on the Gulf of Mexico in a beautiful resort down there.
I wonder why.
Yeah, it's weird. So the Florida retreats are slightly more popular. The November 4th through 6th is sold out, but we do have limited, small amount of availability left. November 7th through the 9th. You'll go from 8 in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Charlotte Harbor is just north of Fort Myers. Most people fly into Fort Myers. Just an absolutely beautiful area. Great resort called the Sunseeker. All the information's on violandplanning.com.
Jeff, thank you so much. Appreciate you jumping on today and having this conversation. This is an awesome way to talk all things quarterly and annual planning. I don't know, I'm sure Katie feels the same way, but it's getting me fired up. We're doing our quarterly planning next week, and we're probably going to start even a little bit of conversation about our annual plans for 2025. And I love talking strategy and planning and all this, and it's getting me really, really excited. So, Jeff, thanks again for coming on.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
This has been Success Elevated, making you a little bit better one show at a time. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe on YouTube or any other major podcast platform to listen to more episodes. We are proudly brought to you by Spot On Solutions. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you grow your business,
please check us out at spotonsolutions.com.